Very interesting you say that, because that seems to be the way that obviously a lot of, modern technology with apps and websites, it needs to be intuitive. When you're starting PaySauce, and correct me if I'm wrong, you started with farmers, I believe. And I'm from a farming background. My parents are farmers.
Right.
I wouldn't say they're technologically unsavvy, but there's quite a mixture of different skill sets within there. How'd you find that process?
See, first of all, it is a myth to assume that people from a rural or farming background are not technologically savvy. They are incredibly. So it is like they'll focus on things that are going to make their life easier. And so our journey into becoming, we're about 60%. So there's a 60% chance that your parents' farm, if they're employing staff, are using PaySauce to manage their payroll. One of the things that I learned really early on is that it is literally impossible to flip someone from an existing payroll solution to our solution. So there's no point trying that. So our strategy has always been, is there a business problem that's related to payroll that we can solve? And if we can solve that, then we can smuggle payroll in, has been our strategy. And so we identified in the dairy sector in New Zealand, there was a particular problem around minimum wage compliance. Farmers were being prosecuted for breaching the minimum wage, and they were not doing this intentionally. This was happening as a result of the nature of farming, which is cyclical, busy periods and quiet periods. Farmers took the attitude that it's swings and roundabouts. Department of Labor said there's no swings and roundabouts in our universe. What happens in the pay period is what happens. And so we ensured by using clever technology that the farmer was never non-compliant with minimum wage. And so therefore, we're not selling a better payroll system, we're providing a compliance solution.
And how long did it take you to go through that process of figuring out, essentially, what is the problem? How can you work your way into the system? As you said, you're not necessarily converting people, you're creating an opportunity for them. How long did that whole process take? And I'll add, how did you go about that process?
It's fascinating. If you go and talk to your customers, they'll tell you what the problems are.
Right.
And we have very, very strong and deep philosophy of continuous engagement with our customer base. And so when we were talking to them, they weren't interested in the payroll thing, but they were talking about this problem and said, can you fix this? And we sat down and said, can we fix this? And we were able to fix that. So that happened over a 3 to 6 month period of where we took the feedback that we had from the customers and built a solution that addressed that specific problem in a way that nobody else had bothered to do that because, software developers, entrepreneurs who are in the city don't make the effort to go and engage with a customer in Balclutha. That's where the original idea came from.
And would you say that's one of the biggest lessons you've learned during this process of setting up PaySauce?
100%. It is a fundamental rule for us is unless we understand what the problem we are solving, we don't build the tech. And the only way we understand the problem we are solving is we need to engage with our customer. We need to get face-to-face. We need to go where they are. We need to go on farm, and we need to understand by talking to them. This is like, it doesn't happen otherwise.
And so from that period of starting out PaySauce, how has the company continued to kind of evolve in that obviously vision, but how have you continued to expand the company out into, I imagine, more broader fields as well?
100%. So what we found is that as we were able to delight and serve farmers really well, where we built a loyal customer base, they then spoke to their doctor. They spoke to their service station person who ran a service station business. They spoke to the motel in town. So we get customers signing up every day from far and wide in New Zealand without us doing any marketing, without us sending any direct mail, none of that. It is business owners talking to other business owners and talking about what we do. Has that then allowed us to build a very strong position in rural New Zealand? So that has been the transition. We've also picked other verticals. So we're working with plumbers and electricians currently, and it is about being seen and solving problems that are specific to that market and becoming then the payroll for that sector.
And so when you hear these when people are signing up and you're hearing these anecdotal stories, is there a consistent message throughout those stories? Is that kind of develops your, I suppose, unique selling point or your identity as a company?
There generally is. So, you'll find that, that's the trick, is to how do you distill what is noise and what is a corner case to what is a real problem here. And that's been the foundation of how we've done our Australian entry, is purely on that, of saying, like, what is the real problem here, as opposed to someone, irritated by the size of an icon or how something behaved.
And you mentioned there you're expanding into Australia. You're in the early stages of that. How's that process gone so far?
Oh, look, I couldn't be more excited about it. We've found there's a number of things which make Australia really attractive. Number one, they have a thing called Fair Work Agreements, which cover 123 different industrial sectors that stipulate how an employer should engage with their employees and what the obligations are around pay, around overtime, around benefits. And in the main, payroll companies have ignored that and expected the business owner to know what to do. So Belinda, who farms in Gippsland, is expected to know that her farmhand, if he works on a Sunday and he does milking, he needs to be paid double time. But if he does feeding and watering, he needs to be paid time and a half. Now, that kind of complexity is inherent in the Australian system. We are able to solve that by building that into our technology, where she doesn't have to think about it. The system knows that her farmhand, Kyla, worked on a Sunday, and what she did was feeding stock, which meant that she needed to be paid a time and a half. And so seeing that opportunity, going back to what I said before, finding a business problem and smuggling payroll in has been really exciting for us, because we can see how big that opportunity is. Not only is Australia a significantly larger market compared to New Zealand, there's around 700,000 micro businesses. That's businesses with 1 to 4 employees. 700,000 in Australia versus the 100,000 in New Zealand. Each year in Australia, 80 to 100,000 businesses are forming in that sector. So it's like a New Zealand market being born every year. If we can be the preferred payroll provider to that market, that is a massive $1 billion opportunity.